As Chair Gomez is getting settled up there, we'll have Chair Gomez move that House File 4830 be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2024 tax bill. And I understand, Chair Gomez, that you've got an author's amendment. Would you like to move that author's amendment as well?
Yes, please, Chair Norris.
All right. Chair Gomez moves the A3 amendment. Do you want to describe the amendment just briefly for us, please?
Yeah, so the original bill directs the department to develop a direct file system that serves 70% of taxpayers. After just discussing a little bit with the department, they needed a tiny bit of flexibility because they're like, okay, what if we get 68%? Like, are we in violation of the law? And so the A3 just changes it to say basically like, file a sufficient number of forms that the commissioner estimates that at least 70% of taxpayers are covered. So that was kind of just a way to provide a little bit of wiggle room to them so that they're not in violation of statute if they miss the mark a bit, but also point them toward what our expectation is around the direct file system that we're seeking to establish with 4830, excuse me.
Great. Thank you, Chair Gomez. Any discussion to the A3 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the amendment is adopted. Chair Gomez, anything further to the bill before we get to our testifiers?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 4830 directs the Department of Revenue to establish a direct file program. We heard the results of Chair Joachim's bill on the study on free filing earlier in the session. If you look in your packets, there's a couple of just background pieces that I wanted to draw your attention to. First, there's a publication from ProPublica, which is pretty lengthy about kind of what Intuit or TurboTax. It's from 2019, but it kind of covers the previous couple decades of their activities with respect to, I mean, there's not like a nice way to put it, but I mean, they basically have effectively lobbied their way into killing any direct file program for decades up until the IRS started their own direct file pilot program that they announced last year. So there are just a lot of challenges. The other piece that's in your packet is just a short Washington Post piece that talks about the data issues. That these for-profit companies that are basically in this situation where they're offering, free filing to people who meet income limits, are also doing what for-profit kind of tech companies do, which is taking your data. And so this Washington Post piece kind of just walks through like, hey, when you're filing your taxes this year, look out for the very first question that they ask you. And they kind of pose it in this sort of like, friendly, jocular way, like, hey, we want you to have the best experience. So in order for you to have the best experience, we need you to give up your personal data from your tax form. Now, the integrity of our tax system depends on the ironclad data protections that are associated with information that's on the tax form. It's considered sacred by the IRS. If you talk to our people at the Department of Revenue, that is like job one. There is no tolerance in the department or in the IRS for any breaches of people's personal data. They take it very, very seriously because in order for us to have a system that people trust, they have to know that personal data, which it's really like every single thing about yourself, has to have these ironclad protections. And so by turning this over to this for-profit company whose sort of whole model is based on, at least in part, on selling data and selling products that are not necessary, which is a kind of thing that has been outlined by the SEC. They've been levied, there have been multi-million-dollar, hundreds of millions of dollars of fines levied against, it's not just Intuit, it's H&R Block and others about their handling of taxpayers' data. So that's one issue that I just wanted to highlight. The other thing is about these sort of the for-profit companies engaging in false marketing, deceptive practices. There's a kind of long history of, over the last couple decades, of them being held accountable for some of these practices. And so, you know, a number of states already have their own in-house direct file systems, kind of a really diverse array of states with different kinds of tax systems and different sort of people in control of their state houses and their governorships. It's not really like an ideological thing. You know, most people's tax forms are very, very, very simple. Most people have wage income that they get on a W-2. They have, maybe they own a house. But, you know, they're really quite simple forms to file. And, you know, so putting together a system that serves those folks who have really simple tax situations and doesn't drive them to, you know, a product that costs something is what we're trying to do with this bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. We do have a couple of testifiers. The first on the list is Nan Madden. Welcome back to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify today on House File 4830. My name is Nan Madden. I'm Director of the Minnesota Budget Project, and I'd like to thank Chair Gomez for bringing this bill forward to create a direct file system. Direct file would give Minnesotans another option for filing their income taxes that would greatly improve their tax filing experience. With direct file, Minnesotans would have an easier, less time-consuming, and cheaper option for filing their income taxes. And having a direct file system that integrates with the federal direct file would add further benefits for Minnesotans by creating a more unified tax filing experience. Direct file could also increase the number of Minnesotans who receive the tax credits they currently qualify for, but that currently are left unclaimed, and it would also increase the effectiveness of outreach efforts. Paying taxes is how we come together to fund public services that Minnesotans value and count on. But with our current system, the majority of folks pay to meet their tax filing responsibilities. The IRS estimates that the average non-business taxpayer spends about 9 hours and $150 to file their federal return. And of course, the state return adds on to that. But currently, Minnesotans have only a very limited ability to access free tax filing options. Only 4% of Minnesota taxpayers file their income taxes through free tax filing options such as IRS Free File, through VITA, and tax counseling for the elderly. With current resources, these services are not able to serve all Minnesotans who are eligible, and there are income, age, and other restrictions on who can use them. Only a few tax preparation software companies offer a free filing option in Minnesota, and additionally, these free filing options do not always end up being free. Problems with free filing options include that some filers are redirected to paid services, or they are required to pay fees for amended returns, and that software companies are not required to be accessible or available to all tax filers who meet the IRS requirements to qualify, as well as the data privacy concerns that Chair Gomez raised. A free public income tax filing option would be a better choice for many Minnesotans, and Minnesota can build on infrastructure and momentum on the federal level and across the country. Starting in the 2024 tax filing season, the federal government is piloting a free federal tool to file and prepare income taxes called Direct File. It's available in 12 states, and 4 states are testing approaches that include their state income tax returns. 87% of respondents in a nationwide survey said they supported people being able to prepare and file their taxes electronically and for free directly on the IRS website. Minnesotans.
Ms. Madden, if you could wrap it up, please.
Yep, absolutely. Minnesotans would save time and money with a direct file free filing system, and we encourage the committee to include direct file in the omnibus tax bill.
Thank you, Nan Madden. Next up, we have Eric Bernstein. Welcome back to the committee as well. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Norris. Committee members, my name is Eric Bernstein. I'm Coalition Director of We Make Minnesota. We're a coalition of labor and grassroots organizations united for an equitable tax code and a budget sufficient to meet Minnesota's public investment needs. We're happy to share our support for House File 4830, which would direct the Department of Revenue to create a free filing system that would target 70% of Minnesota tax filers. As the previous testifier noted, Americans spend billions of hours and tens of billions of dollars every year filing their taxes. This is an effective tax on a tax, and for once, it's a tax that we oppose. So potentially, we could all find some agreement there. We don't think it's appropriate for private firms to profit off of a public requirement, public obligation that we require from the government. There are also concerns about accuracy. The GAO performed several studies. They found error rates as high as 94% amongst tax filing services. So potentially a state-run system could be more accurate, make sure everyone gets back what they're owed and pays the right amount. Error rates are also worse among EITC recipients whose costs of filing are higher, typically, sometimes because they pay for refund anticipation loans so that they can get their money back faster. This is like another feature of our current tax code that we feel is inequitable. I would say that in addition to the amounts allocated for e-filing on 4830, we would also support additional investments in in-person walk-in services so that folks who are less computer literate could find help filing. And finally, I feel obliged to say that I don't wish harbor any negative feelings or wish anything bad towards people who do work in this industry, because my mother was a tax preparer for a while with H&R Block, and she loved that work and loved serving, her neighbors to file. So nothing personal, but we do think that people shouldn't have to pay to file their taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Bernstein. Any other testifiers from the public who wish to testify? Seeing none, we'll move to member discussion. Representative Anderson.
I'll be fairly brief. I know we looked at this a couple months ago or last year. I don't know. Was it last year?
It was a couple months ago.
Okay.
But it's counted.
I guess a couple questions. The pilot is this year, and so won't be happening for a year from now, the federal pilot. And I'm just wondering about the timing of this, and because we're not one of the 12 states either, right? So I'm trying not to get too far, I guess, ahead of myself. And then Ms. Madden made some comments about the average taxpayer pays $150 to file their taxes. I don't know where that number comes from. I for years did my kids' taxes. I've cut them all off now, except one. So, and I used the free file. I used, tax, TurboTax, and, various things, and it was free. So they never paid anything for this. And I think a huge chunk of it's already free. So I'm just trying to talk about the timing. So, it's free now, so.
Yeah. Thanks, Representative
Yeah.
Anderson. I'll go to Chair Gomez, and then if Nan Madden wishes, she could come down and also offer some sourcing on that particular statistic. But Chair Gomez.
Yeah, thank you. So we were not chosen as one of the states to participate in the federal free direct file pilot. All of the states that were chosen to participate in that pilot have their own state-based direct file system, which is what I'm proposing setting up here. Well, the word that it looks like there will be future rounds of the pilot. We can't be positive about that because it's a different level of government, but, they have made, it's actually kind of like, it's a really nice interface. They've made a lot of investments into the direct file program. And so I think, the expectation is that they're not just kind of going to let all of that upfront investment go to nothing, and that the intention is to scale up the program. So we are, even though, like I said, there are dozens of other states that already have their own direct file program. We're seeking to join that group, and hopeful that it will position us in the future to participate in future rounds of the pilot, because if we just have a freestanding state system, you can't file your federal taxes using the freestanding state system. So what you would have to do is, it's not that big of a deal, but you have to put a number in, right, as a starting point. So there is sort of that, it's not like a seamless integration with doing your federal taxes. You basically would end up doing your federal taxes the way you do them now. And then, you'd have to kind of take the federal adjusted gross income and pop it over to the state form on the direct file website. And, I mean, that's not like a huge burden, and doing your own taxes is kind of a pain anyway, so there are things you have to do like that. But obviously, we would be seeking with this bill to set up a direct file system that is primed to communicate with the federal direct file system. And that is one of the directives that's in the bill. I'll turn it over to Ms. Madden, but I just wanted to, I was just messing around last night on TurboTax, and they have this first you have to go through the data thing, like, do you want us to sell your data to people? And I said no. And then they send you to a next screen that's, how comfortable do you feel doing your taxes? And you can say, comfortable on my own, want help when I need it, want a professional. And I kind of went back and I did different scenarios. They send you to the same screen regardless of which of those you fill out, just FYI. So I said, I'm comfortable on my own. So what they said, based on what you've told us, without asking me for my income, right, because I do income qualify for free file. Based on what you've told us, we recommend, one option, assisted. File your taxes confidently with expert assistance. Get unlimited help and a final review from tax experts, ensuring 100% accurate filing and maximize your refund guaranteed for 219. Then you can go down the line. You can get full service. Let an expert do taxes for you, start to finish. That's $469. Do it yourself, your own taxes. That's $129. So, and these literally are the same options that they offer to you, regardless of whether you say, if I say, I feel really comfortable doing my own taxes, they're like, are you sure you don't want somebody to pay somebody $469 to do it? Because like, and the way that it's phrased, right? It says, get your maximum refund guaranteed. Make sure 100% that it's completely accurate. Like, why would I have to pay more money to make sure that my computer program is accurately doing my taxes when that's what it literally exists to do? And so, to your point, your kids' taxes are probably, pretty simple. I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but I'll say, like, I don't have background in taxes. I know it's weird. I'm the tax chair, but I did used to be like my neighborhood tax preparer because I kind of just liked doing them. I would do like my friends and people's taxes online, and I'd of course do them for free. But and they were very simple, kind of like I said, straightforward W-2, not a lot of deductions, exemptions. Nobody's an itemizer. But not everybody has you as their mom, and not everybody has me as their neighbor. And if you were to go into one of these programs, you very likely could say, oh man, I know I'm gonna get like, especially if you have a kid and you're a low income person, you get a couple grand back. Oh man, maybe I will spend $219 just to absolutely make sure that it's accurate and I can maximize my deductions. It's easy to see how you'd end up in that situation, even if, like, strictly speaking, you don't really need that extra help. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Nan Madden.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The figures I gave before were an average from the IRS, and I'm happy to provide that source document to the committee.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Representative Anderson?
Thank you. So just to clarify, average of what people like me personally spend, I spend 10 grand on with my accountant every year, for my business taxes and stuff and personal. So it's an average of that plus the 70% that are free.
Nan Madden.
Representative, Mr. Chair, it's the IRS average non-business taxpayer, about 9 hours and $150 to file their return. So I think that's an average that includes people who pay more and people who are free. The average is $150, but I can provide that detailed document to the
Yeah,
committee.
I would be interested.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Chair Norris. Thank you, Chair Gomez. You stated that this bill kind of evolved out of Chair Joachim's report that cost taxpayers about $3,300 per page to find that it would cost anywhere between $2 and $20 million to conduct this sort of a thing. Did you take I'm looking for some methodology here. Did you take my recommendation, which was to stand at a dartboard and throw it at it to find the actual number? Because where'd $7 million come from, if you could explain that kind of methodology for us, please?
Chair Gomez.
Thank you, Chair Norris and Representative Olson. So I neither took your dartboard recommendation nor the recommendation that you yourself would do such a study for free during session. So, we have gotten if you look in your packet, there is a fiscal note. And so that kind of fleshes out with, again, as I mentioned when we adopted my author's amendment, that I did direct them to serve a certain proportion of the population of tax filers with this program. And so, I think that was kind of like part of getting to an actual number. So there is an actual number in your packet.
Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Gomez. It does look very accurate, and it seems as though it was something that our department was capable of doing regardless of the finding of the report. So essentially, none of this information, if I'm understanding this correctly, came from the report that Chair Joachim directed. Is that correct?
Chair Gomez.
If you're asking me if the information in the fiscal note prepared by the Legislative Budget Office came from the direct file report prepared by the Department of Revenue, I would have to ask you to ask the Legislative Budget Office that question.
Next on the list, we have Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the questions I have, you referenced this before about the security of this new system. So I do have a lot of concerns about that. There doesn't seem to be anything in the bill addressing that. Could you just speak to that? And then secondly, it seems like this is rushed. Like, does the department really think they can get this together by tax year 25?
Chair Gomez.
Thank you. So there, I'll just say a couple things. I am not like a subject matter expert on, building a system like this, but I know that there's a system that's called GenTax that the Department of Revenue uses and a number of other states across the country use as sort of like the back end for their for tax administration. And my understanding is that there are certain states, like I said, there's a bunch of states that currently have a direct file system that are kind of built on that, like, I don't know how to describe it, scaffolding exactly. I'm not an IT person, you might discuss it or discover as we move forward here. But basically, like the system that would be the back end for this program is like a tried and true system that exists that again, like I talked about, the centrality of data protection as a prime directive of departments of revenue across the country and the IRS, like to protect the integrity of the system. That is like built in to everything that the Department of Revenue does. And I mean, so the omission of specific language about security was not certainly to say that that's not a prime consideration as we're moving forward, but just to say that it's so embedded in the way that the Department of Revenue does their work, and it's just elsewhere in our statutes about the protection of filer data, like that exists at the state level and it exists at the federal level already, regardless of the form, that the data kind of takes. Those ironclad protections remain in place. And so, I mean, if there's a suggestion about a way to just make sure that that's, I mean, to kind of make spoken what's unspoken, I'm open to that. We're going to be laying this bill over, so we can certainly have a discussion about that.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just finally, I would say I'm concerned, as Representative Olson said, about the $7 million. The department in the fiscal note said they cannot guarantee that the filing system and the commissioner's estimation will be able to serve at least 70% of the resident individual taxpayers as required in the A3 amendment, and they talk about all the problems they're going to have building this complex structure. Now, maybe there's a fee associated with this tax thing that they can buy some scaffolding that's ready to go, but it seems like the state could be on the hook for a lot more than sort of what we've acknowledged with the level of complexity and the 70% requirement. So I just want to flag that. I think this is going to be a lot more expensive than we might be setting ourselves up to be on the hook for a lot more than we understand at this point.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. Any further discussion?
One quick.
Representative Anderson.
Very quick. So I just want to Okay, so if the federal free file program is being piloted this year for taxes being prepared a year from now, we're not even sure if it's going to work, right? Hopefully it will. Then it, right now, like one of my kids, okay, would have to still use TurboTax or into whatever, one of these things. And then could take their adjusted gross income and then go into a state free program, you know, but they're still going to go through, until this federal thing is set up, they're still going to have the problems that Chair Gomez talked about, you know, like people trying to get you to spend more money. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about because I do it, right? It's many different tax forms, or do it last now, but I get it's a timing. I'm just wondering, because you're not going to solve those problems. You're still going to have the free tax program, not the one that's being piloted by the IRS. They're still going to do the same stuff. They're still going to try to charge. Still going to it's going to be the same. And so, and you would logically just go, yeah, go ahead and file my state return on the same thing. I mean, so but I would love to work with you on this down the road.
Great.
So if it's not part of the tax bill, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Anderson. Chair
Just
Gomez.
quickly, the IRS direct file is live now. So it's.
Oh, it is?
Yep, it's being used. People are using it. They're filing with it. It's happening just in other states. And so, you know, your concerns are valid. Like people still, like I said, would have to, you know, file their federal returns how they do now and then switch it over to a state return. But hey, like, you know this, right? When you go through every step, they ask you, do you want that $469 service? Every step. So if we're taking off, you know, the final 4 steps on the state reform or a state form, then that's all to the good.
Thank you.
And yes, I'll talk to you more about it.
Chair Gomez, any final comments on the bill?
Just thanks for the consideration, the conversation, Mr. Chair.
All right, and with that, Chair Gomez renews her motion that House File 4830, as amended, be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2024 tax bill. The bill is laid over.